Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sisters of the Strange. I'm Landrey.
And I'm Shae.
And she almost died in a tornado.
Oh my God. Yeah, I did.
She was in her closet.
I was in my laundry room.
Oh, they're the same room.
Yeah,
they're just a giant room that has a door between them.
It was actually so scary. I thought I was going to die. I thought my heart was going to explode from anxiety. And I thought that I was going to get sucked away in a tornado and that I was never going to get to see my dogs again or my cat.
Or me.
Or Landry. I mean, God, it was so scary. Yeah. Everybody was texting me and calling me and I was like not answering anybody. Like, everybody leave me alone.
I waited till the end.
My dad called me and I was like, I'll call you back. Bye. And like hung up the phone on him because I was watching the live stream on my phone. And he probably thought that I was actively being sucked up by a tornado.
He's like, oh, love ya.
Love ya. Talk to you later.
I waited till the end. I was just watching the news over your house.
Yeah.
And then eventually, I finally texted you whenever the twins had, I think the twins had already left.
The twins had passed.
So there was twin tornadoes that came by our house. And I live 40 minutes south of her, and she lived clearly. Because you're like, I don't know, 20 minutes north of town, and I'm 20 minutes south of town.
Yeah.
And we drove through it, but we didn't get near as bad as all of north of town.
Dude.
And west of town got it pretty heavy.
It got bad over there. Was like 5 tornadoes on this side of town.
Which is crazy because the town we live in, I mean,
normally
there's
doesn't
always been like, not even every year though, but when there is a tornado thing, it's like, oh my God, there's going to be nothing ever touches.
Nothing ever happens.
No. And like multiple touched. So
yeah.
And it was in like all around my family.
Yes. It was so, oh God, it was terrifying. I hate tornadoes. I have a huge fear of tornadoes. I have my entire life. But God, I love them.
Love them.
I love them. I love to watch them on TV.
That's what
I love the movie Twister and Twisters.
Literally in the middle of it, I sent in the group family message. I said, I really want to watch Twisters right now. And Eugene said, really? I was like,
for the last 2 days, that Luke Combs song has been stuck in my head.
I've
been chasing that same old.
It's horrible because on our drive home, because we were all at like a family thing. I mean, I was at my other side of the family thing. And the weather just kind of started a little bit and we were like, that's fine. And then all of our phones were like, bah! And we were like,
emergency response, take cover.
I was like, oh, well, it's not on my side of town, right? And I think someone was like, well, there's one on your side of town. The rest are on like my other, like the family side of town. And I was like, I gotta get home to my dogs. And I live 35 minutes away. So we did have to drive through some of it. And I literally said, Aaron was like, this is not the time for music because Landon put on music and like turned it off. And then I started singing that song, like driving down the road in it.
We were listening to it yesterday on our way home from Easter. And I was just singing my little heart out. Oh, man.
I survived.
I don't really listen to country music very often, but that song just really hit me in my soul yesterday. I felt like I was in the movie Twisters. It was so scary, y'all. It was so scary. I thought I was going to barf. At one point, my cat pooped in his litter box while we were all in the laundry room together. It was so great. Couldn't breathe. Already wanted to puke. And I was the one who begged my husband to go get him to bring him into the laundry room with us because I was like, where's my cat? And he was like, he goes, babe, to be honest, I don't really care about like the animals right now. Like I care about me and you. And I said, go get my cat right now.
That's the whole reason we left. We were at Dad Mantha's house and I said, I can't leave my dogs. Like we've got to go home. Biggie had gotten out of her kennel.
Oh God. She would have been sucked away into the abyss.
Yeah.
What?
Bliss. 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 But she did. I said, well, that's good. But little dog is like a shaken, like how you said Tonks was. That's what little dog does. And so I was like, oh, poor baby. We gotta go.
Barrett was snoring. He was taking a little nappy nap on my lap. Elvis was climbing up the mattress like he was climbing up the wall like Spider-Man. It was crazy. It was a crazy time. I was so overstimulated. So overstimulated. It was terrifying. And then after the very end, it was all over. It was like 11:30 after everything was like done and over.
Yeah, when he was like, yo, okay, y'all can sleep now.
Y'all are good. My best friend texted me after all of it happened. Everybody else was texting me during it. My very best friend texted me and she said, are you alive or are you dead? Not, are you okay? Oh my God. Like she was like, are you dead? I was like, God, I love you.
So if you answer, you're alive, right?
Yeah. I texted her back and I said, no.
No.
But yeah, it was a very eventful Saturday night. So we survived tornado outbreak.
Yeah.
The great tornado outbreak of 2025.
Now let's see if I survive the flood of this next week.
Yeah.
because I live on the river and they're about to release PK. They already let out a little bit.
And it's supposed to rain a bunch?
They let out a little bit yesterday, but they're like preparing for this week, I think.
Well, we'll report back if we've survived the flood.
Yeah.
I also have a little bit of a Menendez update. It's going to be kind of jumbled up because there's so much happening. There's so much happening right now. If you guys aren't in line with the news, I'm on a Reddit thread and I get all of like the updates. But basically, there was supposed to be a hearing this week, which there was a court date this week. So if you remember last time, the governor of California sent a risk assessment request for them to do a comprehensive risk assessment or CRA of both brothers for their parole, to send to the parole board, I guess, if they end up going that way for the clemency route. If the governor says, okay, you're released, whatever, you go to parole. That was what that was for. But there was also the resentencing thing happening, which is based on their rehabilitation. Right?
Yeah, their good behavior and stuff.
So, and all the good things that they've done in prison. Well, the district attorney, Mr. Nathan Hochman, set a request for the resentencing to be withdrawn.
Oh, is he the one that's they'll never get
He's
out
the
on
one
my
who
account?
is supposed to be this guy who's really hard on crime and whatever. He's saying he's being very, 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 very biased about the whole situation. He does not want them to get out. It's very obvious that he doesn't want them to get out. He's not going by
the book
and what he should be doing based on what's already been put in process and blah, blah, blah. And he's doing press conference after press conference after press conference. And you can just see and hear the just nastiness that he feels towards the brothers. And so it's really gross, actually. And he at one point said he would feel differently about them if they just confessed
the truth
to lying.
Yeah, he doesn't believe in the sexual assault stuff.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that if they just said that they've been lying this whole time, then maybe he would feel differently about them, which is gross. Anyway, so he had said let's withdraw this resentencing, and the judge said no. So the judge was no, thank you. Thank you for your opinion, but no. And then the CRA has been completed now. Nobody's seen it. We don't know what it says. But apparently somebody on Hochman's team has the CRA and they have seen it because it's in their office or whatever. And so they had this hearing that was supposed to be for the resentencing this week. And it basically just turned into this battle between Garagos, which is their lawyer, and Hochman, going back and forth about this CRA. And the family was supposed to be allowed to testify at this resentencing, and they allowed them to do so. They said, hey, if you guys, and a lot of you have traveled here, if you want to testify, please do, whatever. And they were all the family basically said, we're not going to testify because y'all have information that we don't have. So if we testify and you cross-examine us, you have all this information that we have no idea what it says.
That's smart.
And so they're no. And so there was also this back and forth battle of, well, is the CRA going to be admissible in this court for this specific resentencing, which usually it wouldn't be because the two things do not go together, which they kind of do because a CRA could go into their good behavior and stuff, but it's not supposed to be used for that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for court.
Yeah. So it basically was just a battle of that, and nothing really came out of the hearing. And so they've pushed it back again until May 9th. But Mark Garagos, their lawyer, filed a motion to have Hochman removed from the case, which is the district attorney of Los Angeles, which is kind of crazy. It's just he's being very biased about the whole situation. And he's supposed to be this unbiased. That's the reason why you're the district attorney, is because you're supposed to be able to be unbiased, and you are not doing that at all.
I wonder what his stake in it is to feel that way so heavily.
He says that there's so many other people who are in the system, who are in prison, who shouldn't be, or wrongly accused, or have gone through the same thing where they were abused and then they killed whoever, but they still went to prison because that's still against the law. Which, yes, that's correct, it is. But you know, like not all these people are sentenced to life without parole.
Yeah.
You know, and so he's like, it's unfair that these brothers, just because they got all this publicity because of this TV show or whatever, even though that's not true, they've been in the public eye their whole lives, like since this. And he's just saying that it's not fair that they're to get out, or they could get out because they're celebrities or whatever. It's just crazy, which, I mean, I don't think they're celebrities. I mean, they're people. But I still also think that they should not be still in prison. How many
cases have we gone through where it's, or not even through this, but like listened to of murder cases where they only like get so many years.
Yeah.
And they are proven, you know, like,
right.
No.
It just
out of malice.
Yeah.
So
that's where we're at with that. It's still kind of like not really going anywhere, but maybe a little bit in the right direction, it feels. I don't know. There's lots of things happening with it. So I just want to keep it.
That's wild.
Keep it relevant. Yeah. Super crazy.
Note to self. Don't shoot parents.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Don't shoot your parents. You got to remember
I'll
that.
keep that in there.
All right. Well, are we ready to talk about this week's episode?
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I don't really know what to call it.
Okay.
Because it's kind of like a whole bunch of things. It's very interesting. It's more of like a perspective type thing that we're going to talk about. Not really one specific case. So I'm kind of excited about it.
Okay.
So for today's episode, we are going to go to California. We're right back to where we were just talking about. Go to California in the 1970s and 80s.
Okay.
Which was a place and a time that basically was like a serial killer's summer camp.
Yeah.
Right? We've kind of touched on this before.
Yeah.
But at one point there were seriously, like, there were so many serial killers in California that they could have formed a union.
Yes. This is our jobs.
So we're going to get into that.
Oh, good.
So here's like the setup. Here's the background. So in the 70s and the early 80s in California, it was very like just chaotic in general. It was like just on a theme of like cultural, political, economical, and murder and like homicidally, like just chaotic in California, right? But if you think about it, back then in California, it was like, for me, without thinking about this topic, like a dream, right?
Yeah.
So it was like big surfer hippie vibes, like everybody's
Hollywood.
chilling, Hollywood, rock and roll, sunshine, surf, like we're living the life.
I've always said I'd love to go back to like the 70s, do some like Woodstock type shit.
Yes.
Yeah.
So literally what I wrote in here, I said, if I didn't have the information that I'm about to share with you, I would say like, take me there right now. Like that is my vibe.
Yeah.
Surfer, California, music, hippie.
Yeah.
Vibes, just straight vibes.
You would live there.
Oh my God. Yes. And California really is so beautiful. It's a beautiful state. But there was definitely something more sinister going on at the time, and we're going to talk about it. But first, when I say serial killer, who comes to mind?
Like Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy.
And like, just like all of these big name people.
Yeah, the people that are frontline.
Yeah. So like if you're listening, think of, when I'm talking about a serial killer, some of the most prolific serial killers in the United States. Like you have all these names that come to mind. And at least one of those people that you're thinking of was murdering people in California.
Yeah.
Like,
or Florida.
At the time. Yeah. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Because like I said, it's a little bit more of a different episode. We're just going to put it more like into perspective in a way that I literally have never thought about before. But somebody brought it up to me and I was like, that's actually a really good idea.
This sounds really fun. I'm very interested in what's going on.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about multiple major serial killers operating at the exact same time in the exact same cities.
Oh, gosh.
All at once.
Oh.
So It wasn't just one guy doing all the bad things. It was a whole lineup of nightmare fuel. Each of them had their own MO. They all had their own creepy van, and they all had their own police sketch.
Their own creepy van.
And these horrible police sketches. All of them had one, and they're terrible. So we're just going to go down the list.
The 70s stash that every single guy is rocking now.
The glasses.
Yeah.
Yes. So now I'm going to name some names of the serial killers, and I'm not going to get like really deep into all their stories because everybody already knows these stories. We're just looking at it in a different way. So keep that in mind. But if you're unfamiliar with any of these names that I'm going to tell you, I'm going to need you to take a lap. Just take a lap, do some research, and come back to me. Okay? And I'll be praying for you. All right?
In the meantime.
So, these are some of the big names that were active, and some of these cases overlap in California during this absolutely fucking unhinged time in history. So, late 60s, early 70s. All right? The Zodiac Killer. We all know him. We all love him. He taunted police with coded letters and may have committed as many as 37 murders.
He's like very Lover's Lane.
Still unidentified.
Yeah.
This case just makes my head hurt.
If you need information on him, go watch Mindhunters.
Yeah. Yes.
That'll be
absolutely.
A good one.
But Zodiac Killer, late 60s, early 70s. Then we have the Golden State Killer, aka the East Area Rapist, which he was active during 1974 through 1986. And he raped over 50 women and murdered at least 13 people. His name was Joseph James D'Angelo, and he was finally caught in 2018 after all those years because of DNA genealogy.
Was he the one that was like the construction or like roofer kind of guy who worked on houses, and that's how they thought he kept? Or is what's the other one? Or is that Green River or whatever?
That might be the Green River Killer.
There's something there. But yeah.
But Golden State, yeah, he's a creepy looking old guy. But yeah, he didn't get caught until 2018. And then he was on trial in 2020, which was during COVID.
Because he has that.
He wore the face shield and creepy old man. So that was 74 and 86. October 16th, 1977. And through February 16th, 1978, the Hillside Stranglers were active, which was Kenneth Bianchi and Angelo Buono? I don't know.
How's it spelled?
Buono. Buono?
Yeah, I just wanted to know what we're trying to say.
Those two were cousins who killed at least 10 women in Los Angeles. So 77 and 78. So that lapse with the time frame of the Golden State Killer as well. And then we have the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, who was the Satan worshiping, home invading psycho who terrorized Southern California with 14 confirmed murders. And he was active through April 1984 through August 1985. So he was also active during the same time as the Golden State Killer. And then Randy Kraft, the scorecard killer, who was likely responsible for at least 65 murders.
I don't think I've ever heard of him.
And he kept a literal scorecard of his victims and had like coded names for each victim, like on a scorecard. And they found it in his car whenever he was finally caught.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 5 serial killers.
Alone
At one time, which is already a lot. 1 is enough. 5 is way too many.
Thought of them at the same time like that.
Right?
Never.
Isn't that crazy?
I always think of them as their individual timeline.
They were active at the same time.
Dude, to be a cop at that time would suck.
I know. So that's like the big name ones that like everybody knows that, like I said, if you don't, like, what are you doing here? I don't know. Try again. I gotta try harder. Okay. These people are literal psychopaths, insane, and they were all killing people at the exact same time.
I did not.
In California.
Never pieced that.
Right. So now we're going to give a little shout out to the low-key psychos who didn't get their Netflix documentary, but we're still adding to the body count.
Oh, good.
And honestly, I might do some episodes of each of these guys as well, because they're just like lesser known, and I like to do that. Yeah. But there's another list of these guys. So Patrick Kearney, was also dubbed the trash bag killer. He was active in SoCal sometime in 1962 until March 13th, which was my wedding anniversary, 1977. So early 60s, late 70s.
Mm-hmm.
He targeted specifically young men, often hitchhikers, and confessed to 28 murders. And you guessed it, he dropped his victims on the side of the road in trash bags. So that's how he got his name.
I love that because every time I see a trash bag on the side of the road, I'm like, dead body.
There's something in there. Yep, dead body. The next guy, his name is Herbert Mullen. He thought that he could prevent earthquakes by committing murder.
That makes sense.
He's an interesting one. He killed 13 people in Santa Cruz in October of 1972 until February 13th, 1973.
That's quick.
1 year.
That's quick.
13 people in 1 year. So yeah, that's something. I'm going to do an episode on him for sure because he is a crazy, crazy little guy. Oh my God. And he looks like Charles Manson.
Nope.
Also.
Don't like that.
We also have Gerald and Charlene Gallego. They were a serial killer couple who kidnapped and murdered 10 teens and young women after abducting them from shopping malls. And they were active from September 1978 until November 1980. These are all in the same time.
This is wild.
And then lastly, we have the Zebra Killers, who was a group of Black Muslims that lived in San Francisco who committed racially motivated attacks, killing at least 15 white victims in the early 70s, but more specifically like 1970 to 1974.
That's crazy.
That is so many people killing and being killed.
Well, yeah.
Between 70 to 80s.
That's insane.
Yeah. Just freaking going at it.
Another thing you need to add to that small list, I don't know who it is or what it is, but it's like a serial killer couple, and they had like picked up a hitchhiker, and he actually turned to be a serial killer as well. But it's like a real thing, but I can't.
Yeah, because there were so damn many of them.
Yeah.
Everybody was a freaking serial killer in California.
There's a whole movie about it, but I can't think of who or what or when or where.
I don't think I've heard of that.
It could be fake.
Still, it could have happened in California at this time. 100%, because California was like this true crime charcuterie board, if you will. And the police were severely under-equipped to handle all of this shit.
I literally don't even know how they deciphered between, I mean, clearly MO, but that's still crazy.
I don't even think that they were even solving anything. Like, they were just,
God,
they're like, what do we do?
Can you imagine
there's another one.
Like the map in their room that has like a pin of death.
Literally,
death,
I wrote in here, they were just trying to keep their cork boards from exploding. That's literally what I wrote. Because absolutely.
Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah. Isn't that so fun?
I never thought about that in like that manner.
Yeah. I hadn't either until I got into this, and I was like, you know what? We're just going to have to talk about it.
It's crazy.
So now you're probably wondering, like, why and how is this even possible in the first place? Because it's like this just lawless land fever dream nonsense.
It's like a hippie Wild West.
Literally. What is going on in California? So crime scene investigation in the 70s, we've talked about this so many times before, not just in California, but just in general. Like, there was no DNA testing. There was no DNA evidence. There was no shared databases. There was no, oh, let's go check the security camera footage. Like, the technology just like couldn't keep up with what was going on because there was none. But, you know,
even the officers themselves weren't. There was like no procedures to follow.
Yeah, it seems like there wasn't.
Because all I can think about is the Night Stalker case right now. And there was like no procedures. Yeah, like there was so much in and out, and literally so much, nothing was blocked off like in any of the homes.
Right. So. And they had no way to handle any of DNA that they could have might have found if they were even looking. Like I said, were they even solving crimes at this point, or were they just hoping that something was going to fall out of the sky under their desk? That was like, oh,
That makes sense.
Got it.
Yeah. I think they just didn't even know how to go about it at that point yet. Like, what do you piece together to figure it out?
Right. Exactly. So in the 70s, DNA evidence was not reliable enough for legal use because of limitations in extraction and analysis. There was none. The technology was developing at the time, but it was not able to provide the level of precision it needed for accurate, like, identification of an individual. Also, like I've mentioned before, like I did previously in the Texas Killing Fields episode, the cops were not coordinating with one another. So it was easy as nobody's business for these killers to just stay under the radar because they were just falling through the cracks.
Yeah.
And like, California has a lot of fucking counties, like municipalities or whatever.
And just the population itself will really not be easy.
Lots of transients, lots of, just all the things. But it was just like this perfect storm for them to just not be able to put anything together.
It's like a breeding ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not talking. Cops were like super like territorial at the time. Like, well, this is my case. Like, no, you can't look at my shit.
Yeah, we're not working together.
Yeah. Just wild. I can't imagine. Cannot imagine.
I can't even imagine trying to start putting something together back then either, though. Like with the population, the transients, like how you said, like,
yeah,
I wouldn't even know where to begin.
Right. And so back then it was like evidence was a shoe print and a strong hunch is kind of what they based themselves off of. Like if you were not holding a bloody murder weapon, then you were probably free to go.
You're probably safe.
You're probably good. It wasn't you. You don't.
Yeah. And they would have to go off like what people said. People would be like, oh, well, this guy maybe, but
I saw this. It looked weird.
My neighbor was kind of strange, but that's all I got.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-mm. I wouldn't know what to do as a cop at that time. Like you'd go through the crime scene, but then where do you even begin to look at people? Especially because, like you said, there's no technology. Like now I can Google someone and give you an answer. And like, I literally had someone message me this morning and say, can you tell me who this phone number might belong to? And I gave it my all. And I couldn't figure it out. And I was like, I'm sorry, I can't figure it out.
Dang.
But it's so easy to find stuff like that now. And back then, there's not that.
There was nothing. Everything was on paper. There was no like database because in the 70s and 80s, the FBI's BAU, the Behavioral Analysis Unit, was just starting to like become a thing. And they were just figuring out what a serial killer was.
And like profiling.
Yeah. And what sort of like characteristics and personalities and all of these different things that like made somebody a serial killer, which of course, serial killing has been going on for literally forever. Yeah. There's like documented cases in like the 1800s and stuff like that. But like it was not a serial killer until like late 80s.
Yeah.
When the FBI started putting these profiles and doing all these things.
Yeah.
Which again, go back, watch Mindhunters.
It's a very
super good show. And they didn't introduce VICAP, which do you know what VICAP is?
I don't know.
It's just like the Violent Criminal Apprehension Program. So it's like a database that people who have been apprehended or arrested for violent crimes of any sort are in this database.
Oh.
And that wasn't introduced until the 80s.
Oh, no, I don't think I've ever heard of that.
And so, I mean, even then, I'm sure in the 80s, it probably wasn't that big of a list.
Yeah.
Because they were missing so much. So it's just, they just didn't have it.
Resources.
Yeah. None
Resources were severely lacking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. With at least 10 serial killers at the same time that we know of.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure there's more.
Well, think of even today, like when a cop pulls you over, they normally run your registration and everything before they even...
And they can see everything.
Yeah.
Everything that you have ever been involved in.
Yeah.
That has any sort of police presence, they can see it because I have seen it.
Yeah.
I used to have a friend that was a sheriff and he typed my name into his little computer and pulled up all this, every single thing that I have ever been like pulled over for, like registration, speeding, whatever, even like medical calls that we've been a part of. And like, that's on there.
Really?
Yeah. Crazy. I
That's
was like, oh my God, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, that much that much access.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but think how easy it is for them now. Like back then, they couldn't just drive behind you and type in your license plate and know who you were.
Right.
Now they can type in your license plate and be like, oh, that's either going to be, like today I'm driving Aaron's car. So they'd be like, oh, it's Joseph. And then when they got to me and it wasn't Joseph, they'd be like, okay, so who are you?
Yeah.
But it's so easy now to
just have it all right there.
Literally.
Which I feel like us saying that like it's easy. It's not the right word, but like there's so many more resources. There's access to things that like they didn't have back then. That makes it, you have more information.
Yeah, literally though. But like back then they could, like right now, a cop could drive behind me, type in my license plate and have a fairly good chance of it being me, right? Unless my car's stolen. Or like I let someone borrow it. Back then, and like they're not able to drive behind you and look up your license plate and be like, oh, this is probably going to be Ted Bundy that I'm pulling over right now.
Yeah. Exactly.
It took like getting up to him and like having to question him. So that's where I'm like, that's what my point was. It's just not, like you said, accessible. The resources aren't there to be able to tie people together to so much.
Yeah. And a lot of these guys just like snaked their way out of things too, because they were normal looking, good looking, clean cut.
Aliases were massive.
Besides Richard Ramirez, he doesn't count.
That dude.
You see that guy in public, you're like, yeah, you're going to jail just because of how you look.
You're a serial killer.
You look like a serial killer. You're crazy. Done. You're done.
Yeah, no, he's creepy.
Scary, scary guy.
Yeah.
But also, hitchhiking, which we've talked about before, that is not okay ever to ever do. But this was like peak thumb out, hop in behavior going on in California. Let's go. We're getting into random cars. It's completely normal.
No.
That is so wrong on so many levels.
I'm so introverted anyways. I'd be like, I'll walk.
Yeah, I'm good. Walk. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't want to have to talk to anybody, so I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
that's what they were doing back then. That was normal. So that was another reason why people were just being murdered, because everybody was a freaking serial killer and nobody knew.
And how easy they were blown off as, oh, they just ran away.
Yes.
Not any concern.
Yeah. There was no concern, and everybody was a runaway. Everybody was a serial killer. Everybody was hitchhiking. It just...
I've never thought about it this way at all. Like all at the same time.
I never realized that these guys were all at the same time.
I didn't either. That's just insane. The Zodiac Killer scares me. I think he's one of the most creepy to me.
We still don't know who he is.
Nope.
Like, what the fuck is that about?
I don't know. He's smart.
And there was so many like copycats, and
yeah, they got a lot of copycat letters.
Mm-hmm. So like, what's real, what's not? Ugh. Yeah, that's a scary one. And he was active at the same time as all these other psychos. So it's like, could he have been one of these other people? And he's just,
I don't know. Yeah.
It's crazy to think about.
Ooh.
I know. What a perspective, right? To put all these people in the same timeline.
I'd never. My brain's like just like grasping, trying to think of like all the shows I've watched and put them together and like overlaying it.
Yes, because
and California is a large state, but I could almost guarantee they're all probably central or northern California. Like they're all in the same area of California.
A lot of them were in SoCal, and then like there was some in San Francisco, and then like LA. So just kind of like all like those bigger city areas.
When Charles Manson was all in the 70s as well, no?
Yeah, I think he was 70s.
With all his horde of people.
Uh-huh.
And they were all based off hitchhiking as well, and the camps that they lived in, or the camp they lived at. That is insane.
Yeah. Crazy way to look at it.
Yeah, my brain just like spinning. That grinds my gears.
I know. I never ever thought about them all being active at the same time until this. And it's just blowing my mind.
Yeah.
Even while I'm talking about it, I'm like, oh,
like how does that work?
Yeah. And then also the media became a big thing, not a huge thing, but it was more prevalent during this time as well. So that's another reason why this whole like serial killer group was like put out there. So more people were aware of it because there was more media. It was in the newspapers, you know, on the news and whatever. And as they're covering these stories, like these murderers are getting all of this attention and they're getting these names, and the media was just like giving these freaking psychopaths catchy names, like the Night Stalker, Hillside Stranglers, the whatever, Green River Killer, the whatever the other one was. What was it? Golden State Killer.
There's Golden State Killer, yeah.
The Toy Box Killers. Oh, that's not California. I think.
Still, though, they're giving him these names
Trash Bag
and they
Killer,
like it.
Scorecard Killer. Yeah, they're like, oh, yeah, I have all this power.
Because I almost feel like before the Zodiac got a name, I think he named himself maybe. There was one of them that was like, why haven't I gotten a name yet?
Yeah.
And I can't think of who it was, but I remember they were like, why haven't I gotten a name yet?
Yeah, because that plays into their whole thing. And that was what the FBI was like figuring out at the time. They were like, oh, these guys like this attention.
Yeah.
Let's not give it to them and see if it will derail them or
call them something they didn't like. It was like another one like they'd played off of, because I think the Zodiac tried to be the happy face killer as well. Or wanted to be the happy face killer, or that's what they called him at some point. And somewhere in that it pissed them off. Like the Zodiac was like, no, there was something. And I can't remember who it was or what it was, but I remember they like were like, let's not call them by their name, but like let's call them by like a close nickname to it, but let's see how they react to it.
Yeah.
And they got a reaction.
Yeah.
I want to say it was all Zodiac that I'm thinking of right now, but I could.
That sounds right. Because that guy was really big on the attention, which
is
why he did what he did with all the letters. And
I think he signed some of his stuff with like a smiley face, like a happy face. And that's why I could be confusing him though with somebody else. But yeah. Where was the Unabomber out of?
New York?
I don't know. I'm asking. I don't know. Because I feel like he wrote letters too.
Yeah, he did.
I was just thinking, was he happy face or is it Zodiac? That's where my brain's at right now. That's why I asked that. That's my brain's like, am I connecting the wrong dots?
I don't know. Maybe. I've seen too many documentaries. I can't ever keep them straight either.
Yeah. No. Same.
Because there's so many psychos. That's so fun. I love it.
What's crazy now, though, is like there's probably still a ton of serial killers going on right now, but it's like no one wants to be nervous or scared, so they don't really publicize it.
Yeah.
It's not like
they don't want to like put out hysteria. But like this reminds me of so many episodes of like Criminal Minds where like certain killers that they find feed off of the attention. And so they will purposefully either one, not put any news out or try to keep it from coming out at all to piss them off, or they will put out this fake profile to make this guy seem terrible or different than what it really is. And then that pisses them off. And they're like, no, that is not me. That is not how I am. This is what I do. This is, how I kill people. It is me. Give me the attention. Give me the nickname. Like, and it just like derails them.
Yeah.
Because that's their profile.
Yeah, it's their ego.
Oh, it's crazy.
That's just like, you're psycho. That's psycho.
Yeah, it's literally psychotic. But yeah, the media starts, picking up these murderers, and when they start connecting things and matching their MOs and getting nicknames, it's something that we just like know forever.
Yeah.
Because of these nicknames. And so they're just like, like we said, it fuels their egos and it gives them the attention that they wanted, which for some people made it worse.
Yeah.
Just keep killing people.
Well, I mean, you got to think, even like, I'm not a serial killer, but like something I am proud of in myself is like how hard I work, like little things like that. And if someone tries to take that away from me, I'm like,
you're like, no, I did
work
that.
hard.
Yeah.
That's me. Eat it.
Yeah.
So like, that's how they're feeling. And that's how they get like, absolutely not.
Yeah. Because that's their normal behavior.
That's
and they just don't realize that it's
not normal.
Not normal. That it's literally psychotic.
They're a little crazy. I'm a little messed up.
Exactly. But could you imagine like being murdered and then the paper like putting out a thing that says like the toy box killer or the doodler, what the fuck ever, and you're like, oh man,
I was really trying for something there.
I got. Yeah. Or why'd they call me the toy box killer? That's lame.
Yeah. Because that reminds me of like a Jack in the Box popping out of like a toy box thing.
Yeah. So it's just, that's a whole nother crazy piece of it. But yeah, all those things, the media, the hitchhiking, and the crime scene investigation in the 70s and 80s was just not it.
Yeah.
So there was so much that was just left to the serial killers.
Yeah.
Just to live their best lives.
That's crazy. And I want to know, like, what hinders, like, what is it just because everyone like wanted to go to California? Is that where they're all from? Did they all kind of transient there, like most of the serial killers that are there? Because, like, who's to say, why isn't Texas like that?
Yeah.
I think Texas, we just have more guns and we're more Wild West. But, like, we're also a very large state.
Yeah.
So,
I was going to look up, actually, that same thing, like, to see if there was any, like, major serial killing, but not, like, the prolific ones, because obviously we know there's not a lot of those in Texas. But, like, how many of them have worked at the same time?
Yeah.
You know, killing people all at the same time and just didn't realize.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll do that at some point.
Can you imagine being a cop?
No.
In California at that time?
No,
like,
I couldn't.
That's all I keep going back to. Without your resources, that's insane.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very, very, that's one thing my sister always says is use your resources. And I'm very resourceful.
Me too.
I will figure it out.
Yep.
Literally, the text this morning said, "Hey, little sleuth." That's literally what the text was to me.
Aw, that's cute. But no, seriously. It's wild. So we're going to zoom back out a little bit. So basically just reiterating what we've already gone over. But like at one point in the late 70s, you had the Zodiac, which was still unsolved. You had the Golden State Killer, who was actively prowling. The Hillside Stranglers, who were luring women into their cars. And then Randy Kraft actively cruising the highway, picking up hitchhikers and killing them and putting them on a scorecard. And then the Trash Bag Killer confessing to bodies like it was a hobby and just trashing people on the side of the road in trash bags. Like all at the same time. All at the same time.
I wonder if any of them ever knew each other.
Right.
Or like communicated.
Yeah. Or like come across each other.
Yeah, we just don't know.
Yeah. Could you imagine it was an actual union?
They just like, yeah, they do.
Let's kill everybody in California.
Yeah, they're the new, what is it? Like a secret society. I can't think of what I was thinking though.
No, I don't know.
Like the Masons or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
They're the new Masons. They're the secret society over here.
They're their own secret society.
Serial killer secret society. Yeah. I wonder if that's a thing.
Zodiac was the leader.
Yeah. This is my club. No weenies. No weenies allowed.
Weenie Hut General.
Is that a tattoo? Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah. To be a cop in California at the time, how would you not know? How are we deciphering?
Because the only way they caught Richard Ramirez was from his boot print.
Yeah.
Because there was only like, 5 sold in the area or something. Like there's a very small number.
Yeah.
And so
which was a big deal for them to find that out, I think.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. That is pretty cool. Like that was some like really heavy work.
Mm-hmm.
But like if you've ever watched the Mindhunter series, you'll see how hard it is on them. Like it ends up taking the investigator's life away because they literally can't go home and not think about what the case that they're on. And I think that's how I would be as like an investigator. I don't think I'd ever sleep. Yeah. So it's probably a good job that I didn't, or a good thing I never picked like a career path like that because I really was going to go into forensics. I thought that because I like puzzles. I was like, this is going to be a puzzle. Yeah. And I like that. But that's so hard.
You could never turn it off.
No. But just for me, it's like the resources, man. I can't imagine right now not having just the resources I have. Like I can look up anything that I want to look up. And it makes life a lot easier. I can tell you where someone lives. And that's not even based off of like their name being attached to an address. That's based off of like a Facebook picture with a background. And I'm able to say that, oh, that's a monument here. And
yeah, you can just
now
put the
I
pieces
know
together.
that they basically live in this apartment. Like,
yeah, you just put the pieces together.
That makes me sound really creepy, but it's okay.
It's okay. We're creepy.
I just want to know.
We're just nosy little gals.
I'm like, and it's literally someone that doesn't matter in my life at all. Yeah. Like it's nobody that I really I'm just creepy.
Yeah. But then take that mindset and think, okay, I'm getting these letters from this guy who's telling me this and he's taunting me and telling me, he's right here. All we have to do is catch him. And then we have the Golden State Killer who's murdering 1 million people. Yeah. this guy who's throwing people's bodies in ditches and trash bags. How the frick do you not know that that is not the same person?
Mainly just mainly just the MO.
Because at first though, if you think about it, at first, I would think that that could be the same person.
Yeah, and how many of
and until you really put it together,
and until it took profiling until there was more than one.
Yes,
but that's also like, what if some of them? Because I've never seen I don't think I've heard of the Robert Kraft guy, but there's a few of those where it's like I'd have to go back and kind of remember what their MOs are. But who's to say their MOs don't cross over?
Yeah,
like does the Zodiac? I mean, he was more like Lover's Lane, but did he? I know there was one couple that he did like bind or bound or whatever, and they actually lived, or the girl lived or the boy lived. They were down like having a picnic, but one of them survived. He didn't kill one of them, but like he didn't normally bound them. He normally just walked up on the car, I thought, and shot them or whatever. But who's to say that since he's binding them, someone else might bind their victims as well? So who's to say that it isn't the same person at the same time?
Right.
Because they're doing the same thing, even with an MO. Is their MO the same? Sometimes
there's got to be some kind of crossover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because one of the guys you said, he went after like teenage boys, Patrick. What if he was in the same area as Jeffrey Dahmer at the time, and you wouldn't know the difference?
Who's taking these boys? Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's doing what? And that's why I put on here, there were so many overlaps that like, it wasn't even a Venn diagram at one point. It was like just a solid circle of shit, death, like
names.
How do you separate? And somehow though, nobody was connecting the dots because the dots were in different counties and the counties refused to share their information.
Which I don't get that either.
Yeah. Which I think now is like you're not allowed to do that type thing. Like, I think like if somebody comes in from another office,
you have to share. They can fight over the case, I think, like over like lead, who's gonna, but I also think depending, because it's a jurisdiction thing still, but that's where it's like if you watch the Criminal Minds shows, they'll be like, oh, well, I'm taking it over. And it's like a higher system comes in whenever it starts getting to that point.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Once the FBI comes in, it's the FBI.
Yeah.
It's not you anymore. That's why a lot of places will be like pissed off that the FBI shows up because they're like, oh, well, I was this close to solving the... No, you weren't.
No, you weren't. Don't
Just
lie.
let me have it.
But even I think between like a city and a county, like if there was something that happened in Parker County right now, if it was outside city limits, I think that it would be like the sheriffs and not the city cops.
Not Weatherford, yeah.
Which they would still work together probably. They'd still talk a little bit, but the overlap would go here.
Whoever's higher up.
Yeah, but then say it happened in Parker County and in like
Johnson County.
I don't know who's to say. I think they would just work together and share information.
Yeah.
I don't know who's to say they would take the lead.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how that works. Like county to county like that now. That or there's a higher power that comes in like FBI at that point because there's two by each other. I don't know.
Well, we have the Texas Rangers who are like over all of Texas, I think, like big investigations.
I have no idea. I mean, we got state troopers too. Like they go county to county, but I don't know what their duties are, I guess.
Yeah, I don't either. But apparently game wardens have like really high ranking over like everybody.
Really?
Like as far as like city cops and stuff like that.
I didn't know that at all. I just know they give you tickets for doing things you shouldn't do.
For having fun.
Yeah, for being in the woods. But yeah.
For being in the woods with a freaking axe and a trash bag. Like, leave me alone.
You're getting on to me right now.
Yeah, what do you mean? You need to investigate me.
You mean I can't live in these woods for free? Are you kidding?
Mind your business.
Which is crazy. I'm like, I kind of think it's crazy that that's illegal, but also fair, because please do not come live in my woods.
Yeah, please don't live in my woods. I don't want somebody living in my woods.
No, but what if it's like completely like not owned by people, like city, county, state owned?
By anybody, yeah. I don't know. I don't know how that works.
I'm gonna go free range buffalo and live in the woods.
Free range human.
Yeah.
I'm going free range, baby.
Yeah.
No laws. But yeah, so off of the topic of like the cops and how they, bless their hearts, couldn't handle any of it. Also the public it needs to be looked at as well. Because why are you still going to bars? Why are you still hitchhiking? And why are you still letting your kid ride their bike alone at night?
Yeah.
Like, this stuff is in the media. If I was alive back then, I would have locked myself and my children and my entire family in a house.
Hide your kids, hide your wife.
Exactly. Exactly.
No, that's fair. But at some point, you do get to the point also where you're like, I can't let that stop me. You know how many people there are that's creepy that walk around Target that we read daily.
Mm-hmm.
Do we still go to Target alone?
Yeah.
I do not go to Walmart alone.
Oh, I do all that.
I don't. Not even during the day. Do not. But it's no different than going, because they say they sit in like the parking lots, really.
That's true.
But
Thank God we don't hitchhike anymore.
thank gosh.
Thank God.
Thank God I don't do that. Never would have.
Nah, I never would have to begin with. But, you know, that's just...
I mean, I guess desperate times, desperate measures, but...
But, like, why are we doing that? You know that there's 17 serial killers right now?
Well, you know, there's...
Maybe you don't need to go to the bar. You know?
Yeah.
Maybe you don't need to be hitchhiking right now. Like, just stay home. You don't have anywhere to be.
Yeah. But that's another thing where it's, like, nice that social media is a thing now. Because even how I just mentioned Target, everyone knows that there was someone creepy walking around Target within 5 minutes because a mom is going to post.
Yep.
Me and my kid were walking around Target and this person was following us.
Yeah.
So I'll give it that.
Honestly, thank God. Thank God for social media. But yeah, that's a very interesting perspective to look at, to see all of these.
I want to line it out further. Like, I want to I want to investigate all of those together and pinpoint where all their murders were and see how difficult that truly would have been to like
lay it all back out
and lay out their MOs and lay out what they looked like, which is the MO, but like how it all worked and like where they were in California and where it overlapped in like the timeline.
Yeah.
I would really like to like lay that out.
I have a couple of tables that have it like laid out, like how many bodies, their dates, who they are, and like the area. But like to actually like put it out on a map, would be kind of...
That would be a really fun like bonus episode for us to
like a little project
do together. Yeah.
Lay it out on the wall.
Yeah. Really, I think that would be very fun.
Red yarn and all the things.
Don't think I won't.
Don't think I won't.
I
will. So yeah, California in the 70s was a gorgeous, sun-drenched murder palooza. And I thought that it was really fun to lay out that perspective for all of these psychopaths in California.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I've never thought of it in that manner of how it overlapped so like timelines. I don't know. I think every time you listen to like the Richard Ramirez story, you listen to Ted Bundy story or Golden State Killer or Zodiac, you are only thinking of the timeline of them
right then.
And like what they're doing. I've never thought about, oh, wow, I bet someone's doing it right next door at the same time. I've just never.
Yes, I know. I haven't either.
No one ever mentions that.
I know.
So that's very interesting.
It's very interesting to think about.
You've like got my brain going. Like
I know.
I do want to like go back over it in a different way.
I know. Like I wanted to go so much deeper into this, but like I just didn't know.
No, it's surface
how
area.
much more to like spread it out.
I think it's surface area, and then you can pick one of like those that you want to go through.
Yeah, and then we can
circle back around and do this like again, and lay it out. Like I said, in just a different way, because this is very interesting, and it definitely gets like everyone listening right now is probably like,
yeah, because I was like, holy shit,
yeah,
that's crazy.
And I wish I haven't listened to any murder documentaries in a long time, so like all of the murders of these that I do know has been in my brain for a long time, so it's kind of muddled.
Yeah,
but I wish I had watched a lot more of it more recently, so I could be like,
yeah,
because this and this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
And the only one I really know about right now that I could talk off the top of my head is Zodiac. And Richard Ramirez.
Yeah.
Because he's the reason I lock my doors every single night, no matter what. Is that all?
That's all.
It was so interesting. I do want to go back over it. I want us to have an episode where we like really lay it, and it'll be like I don't know, it doesn't have to be a bonus. It could be a bonus. Yeah. Or just for funsies on YouTube, like a YouTube video, so people go look at it on YouTube. Because
and tell me if you've ever like thought of this before, because I never did. And I have watched so many and researched so many things. Like I just never realized that it was all happening at the same time. Yeah. So yeah. Me neither. If you loved this episode, hit follow, like, comment, subscribe, scream, yell into the void if it helps. I don't know. Just anything.
That. I like that. I like the yelling. Let's yell.
I like to scream into the void. It helps.
It helps.
It really does. Send us any of your stories that you have to our email address that we will put on the screen, I think.
Yes, I did it last time as well.
sistersofthestrange@gmail.com. And yeah, go visit California.
Woohoo.
Go for the surf.
Yeah.
Stay because you're duct taped in somebody's trunk. I don't know.
Duh.
That's all I have. That's all I've got.
See you next week.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.